most of us have probably heard Justin Trudeau came out with a new suggestion. Let's have a National Renters Act whereby people can start getting credit for their rent towards getting a mortgage. What does that mean for you and I? What does that mean for landlords? What does that mean for the renters themselves? On this week's episode of the Leadership to Wealth podcast. Okay, let's get into it. What are they talking about with the Renters Act? The Trudeau government is talking about actually creating a national act that is going to govern all renters. And what they want to do is they want to supersede the provincial government's authority in this matter. One of the things that they are talking about including in the act is that the payments that you make towards your monthly rent will have to start getting reported on credit bureaus. Now, that's a bit of a double-edged sword because on one side, it means that you get credit for making steady payments. It helps towards your credit score. On the other side, it will go against the people that make a missed payment or are late on their payments. And it also means that landlords will have to start tracking each and everybody that is renting right now. And obviously we know many renters are happy to be on cash. All of those renters are now going to have to somehow be recorded that they are in these different situations. The upside for renters is that they're somehow wanting to figure out how to help you repair your credit score or improve your credit score when it now comes time for you to buy a house. You're going to be able to show that as your consistent, good payments, which is a great opportunity. I love it. I love that it allows renters to have that opportunity to be able to show that they've got a good payment history to the banks when they're ready to go. The downside for renters is that for renters that prefer to pay in cash, that prefer to, say, be anonymous in where they live, are not looking to get tracked by the government, that's obviously going to create an issue. The other issue is if you ever have late payments, you're going to also now have your rental payments go against your credit report on a monthly basis if you miss a payment or if you're late with a payment. It also means that right now, 90% of all complaints in Ontario with the Landlord Tenancy Board, 90% of them are landlords against tenants who have not been making payments. And so that will be further proof against all of these tenants that are trying to build a case, because the landlords are going to be able to point out that they're not making payments. What happens if there's a dispute? If the landlord now identifies that you're not making your payment with the credit agency, now you're going to have to go back and try to repair that after the fact, after the hit is already taken to your credit report. And that just creates a whole nother layer of issues for borrowers that do, in fact, want to try to get to the point where they can buy a house. So that's just a couple of the things. We obviously don't know. They've just announced it. We don't know all the details in the act. We'll have to watch over the next year as they present it. And of course, they're going to try to present it before the election next year so that they can potentially have more people on their side from the renting community. So potentially what you're looking at now is that renters will have to take care of their credit score to even get a rental. Many times where the landlord might waive the requirement for checking on your credit rating, now it'll have to become a mandatory. We don't know exactly, but now it looks like they're going to have to make it a mandatory part if that's what they come down with, if that's what part of this act is. And you have to ask the question, why have the provinces not done this previously? Have they not looked at this and thought, oh, maybe we should do something where the landlords have to report people's credit their payments and wonder why they've not done it. And so part of the debate around this conversation will be to find that out and why the federal government is trying to put this in place nationally to supersede all of the provincial governments that have this in place. And so that's another question that's going to be that we're going to have to look at and see how is that going to impact landlords and renters. And of course, we know now that adds another layer of cost, another layer of administration. So landlords are going to have to recoup those costs for all of that registration. It's not as simple as just hitting a button. They're going to have to set up accounts with the credit agencies. They're going to have to report on a regular basis. All of those taking time, costing money, all of that will get added on to the renter's cost of staying in those locations, as if there isn't enough of a cost to renters right now. Why does the government want home ownership? At the end of the day, it allows you to get your citizens to grow roots in that country. You don't want a bunch of citizens that are up and leaving and going to different parts of the world. Remember, from a government standpoint, they need revenue. And I are that revenue. We are the revenue for the government. We're the ones that they take money from to pay for all of the stuff that they're promising. So, number one, if they get you to buy a house, then you're locked down for 30 years. You're going to be locked down at the minimum for 5 years. Your ability to move around is severely impacted the moment you buy a house. Now, we make that trade-off because most Canadians are happy to live in a house, have a place that they call their own. Now, if we have this with renters, now the government is able to also lock down renters and know exactly where they are anywhere across the country, because you'll have to register with the landlord, and the landlord will have to register you with the credit bureau so that they can know exactly where you are. Look, for the most people who are, just trying to live their life and do their thing, it probably doesn't mean anything. But for people that want to be able to move around and travel, or go from one province to another, this will start giving the appearance that you are a transient. You are a person that jumps from place to place. These kind of things limit your options, whether it be employment, whether it be housing and shelter, even in terms of automotive. If a lender is looking at you and thinking, well, this guy goes from province to province, we don't want to have to take a chance on having to go chase this person down, this borrower, into another province and trying to get our money back. So all of these things, there's benefits, but there's also downsides to them. And at the end of the day, the government needs to be able to account for revenue. It's the whole point of social insurance numbers. That's the whole point of In fact, it's the whole point of birth certificates. Because how do we calculate our GDP numbers in that? It's because we know how many citizens are in this country, and we get a credit rating based off of that. The country has a credit rating based off of you and I contributing to our taxes, which is then the government is able to pay their debts. So every time that they're looking to increase spending, understand that they are doing it by locking you down as citizen of this country and every other country for that matter. That's the key part of that system, to be able to get a credit rating, even for the government.